Welcome to Money Conversations with KJ. KJ is a lifelong entrepreneur who's made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and found his way back again. If you're looking for a sterile how-to, you're in the wrong place. KJ and his guests will walk you through real-life situations told by the people who live them, and they are as messy as they are inspiring. Each episode will offer lessons learned, advice on how to replicate successes and avoid pitfalls, and a new perspective to power your financial literacy. Far from a one-size-fits-all, this podcast can help you build a roadmap to your personal promised land. Milk and honey for some, whiskey and steak for others, and remind you that you're not alone on this journey.
Ooh, hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, I've got a really interesting guest. I look forward. I've been trying to get him on the podcast for 6 months, but everybody's busy, so that's cool. But today we got in the studio Mr. Don Lyon. Hey Don, how you doing?
Hello. I'm doing good.
Hey, listen, thanks for coming out. I appreciate it. We're going to share your story. And even though I've known Don for 30, maybe a little over 30 years,
Yeah.
And just when you think you know people, maybe you really don't. You know what I mean? Because we're going to have conversations today. And you and I have had conversations about money.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we're going to start early in life about these things and what you've done, what you haven't done, what you've learned, that kind of thing. So all I can say, guys, is buckle up. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, Don, as I mentioned, I've known you for so long, and we've had God knows how many conversations. But today we want to talk about money to help the people out there. There's people out there that parallel each other's stories and what they're doing, and hopefully some of the things that you've done in the past, good, bad, or indifferent, can help people, right? Encourage them, make them change their minds, enlighten them, whatever it may be. So let's start with my typical usual first question is, let's share with the audience, how far back can you remember when money was something that you knew we traded stuff for? Like, how young were you?
Wow, that's pretty good. I would say probably 8 to 10 years old.
8 to 10. What do you remember?
I remember when I would save a little bit of money to buy something like a toy or something when I was a kid. The main thing I had to do was wait for my mom to be able to get me to the store because I couldn't just go when I wanted,
Right.
But I'd say that's about 8 years old.
So at 8 years old and you wanted whatever this toy might have been, what did you do to actually get the money?
We would do allowance. We'd have allowances. We'd have to do yard work. My dad would set up stuff for us to do at home. In yard work, pulling weeds, raking leaves, whatever it took, We had chores that we had to get done. Some were paid, some were not.
Right. So, which is a typical story. I mean, I would think, especially in our generation, right? Don and I are 60 years old, that's what we did for money at that 8, 10, 12 years old. We would either get an allowance or parents would be like, go mow the lawn, I'll give you $2 or whatever, right? But talk to me, the thing that I've learned some lessons along these podcasts, which is, so if you knew you wanted, we all want stuff as a kid, right? I want, specific shoes or toys or whatever. Okay, well, I'm willing to go do this, AKA chore, to make money. Do you remember at any point in time when you basically sat down and I call it a negotiation with mom or dad, like, hey, I want XYZ. And they're like, okay, well, you do this chore and I'll pay you dollars, right? Did they sit with you and start to talk to you about money and how to treat it, how it works and how we should respect it? Did they have a money talk with you?
No, that never happened.
Never?
No. The only thing that I can recall at 10 years old, I wanted, a particular kickball. The only thing my father said, well, you're going to have to just do more around the yard, more around the house. And that wasn't, any different to me. That wasn't a big deal to me. I could do that, When I got to be about 11 to 12, I actually started mowing lawns just to try to make a few bucks here and there. I didn't do it for very long, but I did it, we ended up moving and things like that. But I would do that to just try to get additional money. And back in those days, we're talking, early 70s, I was, it was $5 if you're lucky to mow someone's, yard.
So let's think about that lesson that a lot of us subconsciously learn. You learn, I have to do something to receive money. I have to trade my time for $X. Right. And you'd mentioned that, well, after 8 years old, about 11, hey, I have to do more. right? I can't just do one thing to buy one thing. Well, I want multiple things, so I have to do more things to trade, right? And that's our journey starting how people have JOBs, right? You trade time for money, right? So as you got to that age and you figured that out, at what age did you, and you didn't never have a money conversation with mom or dad? They never sat you down and say, hey, listen, you're going to start to make money. You got to start XYZ. They never told you anything?
I'd say by about the time I was 15, we're getting older. We're in our teen years now. And we started wanting things like better tennis shoes. Nikes were new, stereos, things like that. And my dad had gotten us into the habit of coming down on Saturdays to work in a body shop. My dad was a car painter. So we started doing that at young ages, mainly because we had to. And then in the first years, he wasn't really paying us. But as we started getting older, he would throw us bones here and there. And then it started becoming more of a regular thing. So I started saving money that way. I think I was a better saver as a kid than I ever was as a young adult. I would save money, and then I would find something I wanted. Like in, say, 76, there was a stereo I really, really wanted. I had my eye on it at a store here in town. And I would, start figuring out how much I can put aside from what I was being paid by Dad to do that. And the one thing he taught us to do without really explaining it was there was 3 boys who were eating like monsters in the house. So he would tell us, I want you to start setting aside $30 of your money to buy milk, to buy things for yourselves. And then he actually got us to segregate our own food. At first, we didn't think that was fair. We didn't like it.
Right.
But again, it taught us to, start taking care of ourselves at a younger age.
Starting to be more independent.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lesson in there, right? And I think we all learn lessons in that age. We really start learning lessons, life lessons you could reflect back from, I believe, from the age 5 up until we leave and are on our own. So Dad taught you guys a lesson. When a minute ago you had mentioned you had your eyes on the stereo and you kind of calculated how much you made per week, and I'm going to save $X and I should be able to get it by 5 weeks, 6 weeks, however long it took to actually purchase that thing. The question is then, when we think like that, right? I teach in my course, and I teach most of the people I talk to, we really need to learn the difference between wants and needs.
Right.
And you learned a lesson early, which is, I think, what throws a lot of people off track, where your wants are a lot more important than your needs, And
Absolutely.
the minute that the mindset understands that, it's kind of like I was having a conversation earlier. They know now that our cell phones, right, that we all have, every time we pick them up and we're looking at our social media to see, what a post is, or someone, liked or something on your post,
right.
and we see it, and it actually releases dopamine.
Right.
Right. And so to me, that's what happens when we're young like that.
Yeah.
We get this dopamine shot because we want these things, and then we do what we have to do to go get these things, right? And when your parents or nobody sits you down and talks about money, and we all retrospect now understand it, like, money makes money. We need to make our money make money.
Right.
We don't go work, do whatever we do, trading time for money just to buy things. That shouldn't be the norm. But unfortunately, like in your path, and
That's
don't worry, most paths are the same way.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Working for money so I can buy the things I want.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, the things we need kind of get in the way, and we know we got to pay for them, right? Yeah. Like if you have a car, you have to pay for gas. That's a need, right? And insurance. And you got to take care of it. And I got to live somewhere. I got to pay rent, blah, 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 right? And the list goes on and on and on. So, as the listeners are out there, a lot of them are right now thinking, yep, that was me.
Yep.
That was my same path. No one taught me. I had to go do X, Y, Z, whatever I had to do. At what point in time, so now you're getting older and you're getting those teenage years, young adult, when did you figure out and realize when you started to probably create some bills and you needed to take money a little more serious? When did you kind of figure that out?
That was a hard road for me, mainly because I think at the time my maturity level was, in my opinion, lacking. I was young and married, and I wasn't really as concerned about money in the long term. I was definitely about the short term. And I think that's because of how I was taught. Going back to the stereo situation, it was one of those things where you put money on layaway. You put something on layaway to buy. I never knew the difference between consumer spending and saving for something you want to buy as opposed to putting away money for investing. I didn't learn that until I was in my 30s, early 30s. And it was a little bit of a shock because I started to realize doing it wrong, But life, and you have a child, and you got a young family, and it becomes more difficult. And there were times, and there were probably years where I was a little bit upset of the fact that I didn't know these things sooner. My parents didn't teach us things like that. We never learned about investing. My father was never really an investor. He made good money. He was a good car painter.
Right.
He took care of himself. He made sure he always drove a really nice car, and he'd have a truck too. So he'd have nice things, a nice boat, things like that. We saw consumer savings and spending, and that's all we saw. We didn't realize that there was a difference, or that we should start planning for tomorrow.
Right.
And I've always considered myself kind of the late bloomer in regards to that, because for some reason that light just didn't go on for me until later.
Well, I want to first understand that you were not alone in that journey. Yeah. I can guarantee you the majority of the audience listening right now is shaking their head going, yeah. And you mentioned that you didn't learn it or realize it and understand it until your 30s, your early 30s, yeah. Right? And I find now through conversations like this is normal, yeah. That we all go through your 20s until your early 30s, and you're going to be more of a mature adult, and you've had these responsibilities for a while, and you look back and you think to yourself, wait a minute, this can't be it. This can't be the right. Journey that we grew up that I'm supposed to be on, right? There must be something different, better, whatever that we were thinking. And then we start to be more proactive about, right. Hey, let's really figure this thing out now with yeah. Money, right? I mean, life's happening, and again, family, and those are all great things. But we all know that when there's a lack of money, life can be hard.
Yes.
Life can be hard when there's a lack of money.
Absolutely.
And you're working either paycheck to paycheck or maybe just a little bit above that, right? Enough to have enjoy life at a better level than just paycheck to paycheck. But talk to the audience. Then again, I can just picture in my mind a lot of them just shaking their head. Totally. That was my journey too. Let's hopefully enlighten some of these people. Because everybody has a different reason, even though I found that it's right around that 30 years of age,
yeah.
That you reflect. What do you think caused the reflection at that age for you?
That was a distinct thing that happened to me. Was a career change. I was actually trying to find a way to better what I was doing. Again, had a young family. So I went into the insurance business, and I started learning about money in a different way. Obviously, life insurance was the main thing. That was the main thing I was trying to sell. And learning and hearing about investments for pretty much the first time in my early 30s. So it made me basically go, wow, there is way more to this than I ever even imagined. I mean, when you're growing up, you hear things, but, you're just kind of plowing ahead doing your thing. You hear it, you just keep moving. It was never a serious thing for me until that point when it started entering my mind more. And then, fast forward some more, I didn't really even then take it totally seriously until I started getting closer to turning 40. And then it was, you cross that line from 39 to say 40, going into 41, going, oh my gosh, I really am getting older, and I better start doing something I'm already late on. I should have started. And the funny thing was, I actually did start in my 30s working for the insurance company. But again, I wasn't super serious about it yet, because I didn't really fully take it to heart and make the decision.
So even at that point then, that you went to work with whatever company selling the insurance, you didn't dig in deeper. Can we say that you didn't dig in deeper to find out really what this game was about?
Right.
Right. And again, this is why this podcast and my YouTube channel and everything in my program, which is Roadmap to Financial Literacy, Building Lifestyle by Design, that we need to learn these. If you had to, I like to ask this question to the guest, which is, right now, again, you and I are sitting at 60. If you had the chance to go back and talk to the 20-year-old Don, what would you tell him?
Oh, man, I'd be like, save your money. Save your money and put it to good use. Not just save it, but put it to good use. I would also talk to myself about career issues, things like that I was trying to find. I never really had anyone that I could ever look to as a mentor or guide. I've never had that. And you're right, you and I talking, I'd say by the time we were pushing our 50s, you were my go-to guy for things like that. We would start talking about money. But in those years, and back, if you look back at what I would say to myself, I would definitely have said.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, and I've had this conversation too, which is for a lot of you guys out there listening, if you are in that younger age, if you're under 30, I'll say, you can even be past 40. There's no age for this. But, man, if you can come across and get yourself a mentor.
Oh, man.
Right? I mean, Don, how valuable would a mentor been to you?
And you also have to, to me, this comes down to personal change. When somebody recognizes that there's some things in their life they need to change, they're willing to do it. But back in those days, if you're not, or if you're in your 30s and you're not at that place, you need to get yourself to that place. You need to get to that place where you actually consider having a mentor, having somebody. Most people look at it like, oh, man, I'm not going to go talk to somebody because of blah, blah, blah. I've had that same attitude.
Right.
As you get older, you start going, oh, man, that's the greatest thing you could have is somebody, it's a coach, somebody in your life.
Hindsight 2020.
Absolutely.
But again, so for some of you guys that are out there and gals, I don't want to say just guys, but for you guys and gals that are out there listen, it's some people and I've had this conversation where like, hey, where do I find a mentor, right? Well, guess what? You have to ask people. If you come across someone who you're like, man, that person's successful, they're doing awesome, how did they do it? Guess what? I could pretty much guarantee you 9 out of 10 people, if you approach them and you just let them know exactly what you're thinking. Listen, Bob, I'll just say Bob, right? Make up a name. Hey, Bob, man, I noticed, man, you're a pretty successful guy. You're happy. You live well. Like, how did you do it? What can you share with me so that I can do something like that, right? And they'll share with you their story, right? Whatever it may be. And at the end of that story, don't be afraid to ask, you know what, Bob? You know what? I think you would be an awesome mentor. Would you mind mentoring me that we could have more conversations about these things? Because I don't know anything, right? And you could just come clean. Like, mom and dad never taught me. And, man, I think a mentor from you could really help my life. Would you be open to do that? And again, I've talked to a lot of people, and most people will tell you, sure.
Yeah.
I can't
talk. People
want to help people, right? Most people are very genuine, good-hearted people, and especially successful people. They want to share. They want to give it back. So don't be afraid to ask. Now, again, I'm not telling you 10 for 10, but 9 out of 10. Mm-hmm. And then again, you don't want to. This is the advice I'll give you as far as approaching and getting someone as a mentor. Remember, they have their own lives, they're doing their things, and just negotiate whatever you think you need. Hey, Bob, can we meet once a month for an hour or two, or every other week, or every 6 months? And, in the beginning, maybe you need a little more, and it gets you on track, because if this person's never been a mentor, and it could be a guy or a gal mentor, both, right? They're going to realize that you're lost, and they're not. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the successes they have. And they could say, listen, I'll talk to you, negotiate it. I would say, if you really know anything, kind of like where you were at 20, I would say, can we talk once a month for a couple of 3 months? And then, whatever you ask me to do, I'm going to do the best I can to follow that, right? I'm not here to waste your time. I'm here to, whatever knowledge you have that you can pass down on me. I mean, you can agree, how would the trajectory of your life would have changed what? Dramatically?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's the other flip side to what you were just saying. If you're hungry for it, if you desire it and you are serious about it, people always look on and they'll be like, I like this kid, or I like this guy or this girl, because they're showing serious initiative here, wanting to do something. And they will make some. I mean, there are probably some people that just wouldn't do it because they don't care or whatever. But there's a lot of people that would take you under their wing and actually help you. But when you're young, you don't really know to ask or you don't know who to ask,
Right, exactly. And again, there's no mentors aren't out there advertising to be mentors, most of them. I personally don't even know where you could go find one unless you're just asking somebody, right?
You can look around your own life and see who's there.
You're going to find we all know of someone.
Could be a family member.
It could be. It totally could be.
Yeah.
Right. So let's keep going with your journey that you recognize in your early 30s. You tried a different career path to learn more. So did you start to do things with your money differently once your eyes kind of got open to like, holy moly?
I did finally started trying to put money in places where I thought it would help. But again, I think, I don't want to blame it on life issues and things like that, but that did play a serious role. There were a couple of career changes and things like that until I finally got situated in a business that I could grow in. I started back up. So I only did it for a short time during the insurance years, and then resumed it once I started getting close to 40. That's when I started realizing, gosh, I got to start doing something. And then I did. I finally started going through the employer provided,
plans, 401ks
and stuff. And then I actually looked in and started doing a couple of other investments that were small, but just things to kind of help. And again, you get hit again. I got hit again with some more change that disrupted that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, and that's okay. Listen, life's going to throw curveballs at us, all the time. Yep. Just like I always say, opportunities in front of us all the time. It's just recognizing it. Well, we can't see the curveball coming until it's across our plate, right? And then life will throw one at you. But what I like to talk to people about money is money's about a habit, right? We all have all kinds of different habits and or traditions that we live by, right? There's two or three different ways to tie your shoe, right? You choose the one when you're a kid, right, and that's the way you're going to tie it the rest of your life.
Pretty much.
And I kind of think money's the same way, right? If you can create that habit, all right, it has to be a habit. It has to be is just like tying your shoe. You don't even think twice that when you put your shoe on, you got to tie the lace, right? That's just automatic.
Right.
Well, if we can get to a point in our lives with our money, when every time you get paid, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever it is, that, hey, I know there's a rule out there that, like Warren Buffett likes to say, listen, pay yourself first. There's nobody more important on the planet than yourself personally. And so if we can get into those habits early, the earlier the better that we can get in those habits, like it's normal, like it would be abnormal. You wouldn't put your shoe on and not tie the lace, right? Because you could trip, fall, and it's just uncomfortable to have that thing, hanging loose down there, loose, right? And so creating a habit with our money should be the same way. That, like, I'm so used to putting away whatever it is, 5%, 10%, whatever it is, that no matter what life curveball comes at you, you're like, that's fine. I've got to deal with this curveball over here, but I've got this habit now because my bigger prize, because most curveballs are temporary, right? They could be a week, 2 weeks, a month. Most curveballs don't last very long, right? It's just a situation we're in, and then we got to get out of it.
Most don't. Yeah. I mean, economic downturns can hurt. And that robbed a lot of people. Hit me too. Yeah. But you rebuild. It's part of life. You got to deal with it. You most people do and live what they know. And I, again, don't want to blame the past, but at the same time, you're going to only be able to do what you know to do. And until you start branching out and talking to other people, that's how you get other ideas and stuff like that. And you start getting to where, like for me, I finally started getting a little more serious once I got past my late, I'd say more my later 40s. That's when I started getting more serious about. I'm like, wow, I'm really going to run out of time.
Well, like we said, I've known you a long time and I've seen you, and you're what I like to call a hustler, meaning you're going to do what you have to do to make money, right? Yeah. You're not going to sit on the sidelines. I've never seen you just collect unemployment for a year or two or whatever, anything like that. You're a hustler. You're going to go do what we got to do. I think that's our generation in general anyway. But my point is that you're describing that, economic downturns, things that are out of our control that somehow can affect us financially. And yes, and those things are going to happen, and they happen.
They're going to happen,
but they don't happen to us individually. They happen to society as a whole. Now, we can protect ourselves against those times when they happen, because they're out of our control. Like COVID's out of our control. You know what I mean? If a big war breaks out, that's out of our control. What's in our control that I like to teach in the program is for people, this is how vitally important it is to understand the 3 different pillars of finance that you need to reach. And the first one, well, there's 4 actually. And the first one is, hey, get yourself an emergency fund, right? You must have one. An emergency fund is just generally $1,000. Maybe you want 2. And then again, that's just emergency money, right? Especially if you're living kind of tight on budget. Now, the second one we need to reach, as I teach, is we need to get ourselves financially secure, meaning we need to have enough money put away in a separate account to pay our bills for 6 months. Because when these economic down, like COVID last year, right? People, out of not their own fault, they couldn't go to work. Now, there's plenty of people that had the money, rode the wave out. Some people who lived check to check, like, what am I going to do? Then the government stepped in, started giving you some money. But how do you think the people who were financially secure, had the money to pay all their bills, do you think they were as shocked? Do you think they went into a financial shock?
I don't think so, because they were prepared for it.
They were prepared.
Yeah.
And this is why it's vitally important to reach that pinnacle as soon as you can. Now, that's not easy. I use the example, if you have bills like around $3,000 a month, 6 months, that's $18,000. Clearly, that's going to take time to put away. Right? That's going to take years, most likely, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And or if your expenses go up, I'm $4,000 a year because I got married or whatever may have happened. That you just got to put that away. But you need to put that away because you and I know what the feeling is like to be broke. And when we say broke, we're talking about, I don't get paid till Friday, but if I don't pay the light bill on Wednesday, it goes out.
Right.
And I got no power.
Right.
Like, that's broke. Right. Or I can't go to the store and get food. Right. I got to, hopefully somebody invites me over for dinner kind of thing.
Right.
We've been that kind of broke, which is a horrible, horrible feeling. It's just in your gut. Oh, it hurts. It's just awful to be that way.
Right.
And so I believe when I teach these things, and I've taught my kids that, get to that point, you're going to sleep so much better. Life is going to seem so much easier for you.
Yeah.
And you're not wealthy or anything. You just have yourself covered for whether the economy did something to you, maybe physically you got sick or injured. I can't work. Like, all right, I'm going to be okay. Because guess what? On all those scenarios, the bills don't stop coming, right? The creditors aren't going to say, oh, well, I'm sorry you lost your job. Here, pay me when you start back up.
You know, when the economic crash happened in 2008, I was one of the casualties. I lost my job. You know, you send out 200 resumes in the first year, and you can't even believe you did that many, and nobody's calling.
Right.
And then you're going, well, I mean, I've got money set aside, and it's for this purpose, I guess. And I had money that I had to live off of, and then try to hustle and make other money that carried me for a 5-year period, you know. So you talk about that sort of scenario, which is uncontrollable, and you start over, you know. But like anything else, the sooner you get started, no matter where you are in life, you just got to get started, and you rebuild if you have to, or if you're young and things are good, the sooner the better. You got to get started as soon as you can, in case something does happen. Because you know, in our world, there's so much more going on now that we can't predict. We don't know. COVID, we didn't see that coming.
No, nobody did.
I was actually fortunate through the COVID thing. I didn't. I kept working the whole way through. I didn't lose anything. And I was actually very grateful, because I know what it was like to be, you know, forced out of something when the economy went bad, that I actually got to stay doing my job and doing my work. And I've been very grateful for that. And I've been able to continue to save through it. So that's actually a good thing. I've still been able to contribute the money that I do put out. You know, I'm a late boomer. I started late, but I'm making things happen a little bit slower and later than I wish I had done. But I'm there doing things that I hadn't done before, you know.
So let's talk about, because you have a son.
Yes.
And I talked to parents, like we talked earlier. Your mom and dad didn't sit you down. I mean, my mom and dad didn't sit myself down either. Do you remember if you sat down with your son at an early age, and how early, to have the financial talk?
I don't really remember doing that too much with him. I think there might have been a couple of conversations about, saving money. But again, you live what you know. And I think I was probably just telling him what I knew, and kind of instilling in him the similar things,
Yeah, it's funny you say that because and if people who've listened to plenty of my podcasts hear me say it, I say it all the time.
Yeah.
Parents can't teach what parents don't know.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's bad. For better lack of words, we were a victim of circumstance where, if your dad would have taught you some sort of money lessons,
it'd have been different.
You would have taught your son
exactly
money lessons, right? So for you guys that are out there listening, one of two things. If you're a parent, and if you're listening to my podcast and you're a regular listener, then you have a responsibility now because one, I'm congratulating you on being very proactive on learning about money, and you want to hear other people's stories. And I want you guys listening to understand you are not singled out. Right? This is not you. It's not your fault that you are in whatever, if you're not in a great financial position. But you would be at fault if you have a child, you're being proactive and you're not teaching them. Yeah. Shame on you.
Right.
Get out there. And don't forget, the earlier the better. And when I say early, Don, how do you think your life would have unfolded if your parents started teaching you about money at age 5 or 6?
Oh my gosh, I would probably be in a completely different scenario.
Right. So again, don't be afraid. Do you think you would talk to your child at 5 or 6 about money?
I would, yeah.
What do you think were some of the first lessons you might want to teach a child? And again, 5, 6, 7 years old, your child, right? What kind of lessons do you think you would teach?
I think there's a lot. I think there's things like, you have this much money. This is how much you're going to you should put aside for yourself to save, not to spend.
Right.
There's another part that you need to get, something that you want. And if you still don't have it, then the next thing comes. But then you take that next part and you put money aside for yourself. It's the same principle of paying yourself.
Paying yourself.
And then get what you need or want to get. But it's about spending less than what you have. That's the thing.
Live within your means.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I would want to teach at this point, looking back.
Looking back.
Yeah.
That's a great lesson, more than anything, that type of lesson is more about being conscious about money. Right. Yeah. Because if most 5 or 7 or even parents, I've heard this 1,000 times. Oh, they're too young. They're just a kid. It's not time for them to learn that. They got plenty of time to learn that kind of stuff. But here's what I found, Don, and you said it earlier, that even though you went back to like 8, that we as kids, and I say age 5, and it could be earlier, that we are always watching our parents. And that if our parents were savers, we'll be savers.
Right.
If our parents were spenders, we're going to be spenders. And I've had people on the podcast that say, hey, mom was a spender, dad was the saver. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, which one are you? She's like, I actually followed mom. I'm a spender, right? And so subconsciously, as we watch our parents doing these things, even though they're not sitting down and giving us actual verbal lessons, we are watching and emulating. Because I think our parents, to a certain age, are our heroes, and we want to be like them.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean, you should. Again, you don't know any different up until you get probably early teenage years, and you're starting to meet other parents, and they do X, Y, Z, whatever they do, and you're like,
then you know more than them by the time you're a teenager,
It could be. So to get out my point is, we should talk to these kids as early as possible to create the right mindset around money.
Right.
Respect it. Don't squander it. Learn that money is a tool. I like to say a tool. Let's use it correctly, right? Awesome. Wow. Well, now you're hitting up there. You're with me. You're at 60. We still got plenty of life left to go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Do you foresee yourself retiring, and when?
So that's been a good topic of conversation in a couple of circles of mine. For me, I'm not, I have a really good, occupation. I love what I do, and it's not physically stressful, and it's not really mentally stressful either. I have got a pretty good gig, and I'm planning on going at least another 10 years, and that's just by my own will and desire. Right. Not because I have to. I think realistically, I probably could in about 7 years, but I'm kind of thinking, I don't know if I want to, because my job where I work for the government, but I am actually able to, go to a shorter schedule, still keep benefits, still keep contributing, keep doing the things I need to do. And when I get older, and if I don't feel like quitting, why should I? If I can do the job and I love it still like I do now, why wouldn't I just keep going?
I love the attitude, because I just thought right now when you were saying that, right? One, and you and I have talked about it, I don't like the word retirement anyway, right? I don't strive to retire. I strive to be financially independent. But for some reason, what just came to my mind, the person who just passed away politically, which is Bob Dole, he was 98 years old.
Yeah.
And, these politicians who live so bloody long, right? They live in their 90s, most of them.
80s.
They literally work until they're out of office, and they're in their 90s.
Yeah.
Why? I think it's like what you just described. They liked doing it. Right. They enjoyed it. I think that people who hate what they do for a living can't wait to stop and then go do whatever, sit on the couch, go fishing, go golfing, whatever. Right. But if you love what you do, I think we need, if you took that word out of your mind, out of your mindset of retiring, and you're like, I enjoy what I do. I'm going to do it as long as I can, physically and mentally. And when I die, I die. Like, I could use Warren Buffett as an example. Here's a guy who's 86 years old, goes to work every day. Right? Does he have to? That guy's worth billions of dollars.
That man's been frugal his whole life.
Yeah, he doesn't have to go to work, but he does because he knows. And a lot of people who do keep working like that at those later years is because they know if they stop, what's going to happen?
Yeah, a lot of people fear they're going to die.
They're going to die.
But on the other hand, too, when you love what you do and you're working, and you get to that place where you can decide either way, guys like us are going to be like, well, okay, I just retired and I'm bored out of my mind. So what are you going to do? Go work at Walmart and be a greeter?
Right.
No. After that point? No. So it's in my position, I'm sitting there going, if I really love what I do, why would I leave? Why don't I just keep working? I'm still making great money. You can always talk to an employer when you've been there a long time. Some companies cut older people out.
Right.
In my situation, they don't really do that. But people can make, deals or situations where they can actually continue to work. Some guys go on a consulting situation. I'm not saying I would do that, but I'm saying that.
Well, you don't know. I mean, it's years down the road. You may say, you know what, that sounds like a good gig. I'll do it.
It could be, and you're still contributing, and you're still making money. And you're not bored. You're not at home or looking at going to Walmart to work somewhere.
It's funny. It's ironically we're talking about this because a good friend of mine just did this, right? He retired a year and a half ago, right? Worked for Metro. And listen, I play golf with him every week. He plays golf 2-3. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to retire. He did his 30 years.
Just play golf.
He just wanted to play golf. Well, guess what? For the year and a half, we've been playing a lot of golf. He's been playing at least 2 times, sometimes three times a week, and doing everything else that he wants. And then he just shared with me, I don't know, a few weeks ago, whatever. He says, hey, Kev, I took a job. I'm like, you did? I go, why? He goes, well, I don't have to take the job. I mean, my retirement's great. I could keep doing what I'm doing. I'm having fun. He goes, but I'm a little bored, and they made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
There you go.
I'm like, really? And he shared it with me, and I was like, wow, you're right. I'd go do that position also. So he got hired on, and he's going back to where he's just hired on. He doing a 2-year contract because he's not sure he wants to go do another 10 or whatever.
Right.
And he's our age. He's 60 or 61. And I go, well, dude, that sounds awesome. It's a great opportunity. You're going to go help people. They need help. They need his help. Yeah. They go, you're going to go help people. You're going to make a few bucks, actually more than a few bucks, right? It's going to be good for him. And then you're going to really figure out, you know what? I really did like that retirement lifestyle. That was pretty sweet. Or, you know what? I'd like to be busy. I want to keep my mind active. I want to keep
reassess it.
You always reassess. So I think if you're in your 40s and 50s and you're kind of seeing that light at the end of the tunnel of AKA retirement, because that's what society has programmed us to be, that retirement's an age, and retirement is 100% not age.
Right.
Retirement has to do with money. That be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for. So yeah, now you're sitting comfortable in life right now. I could tell that, you know, the last few calls that we've had, and you're not, you know, all stressed out about money or anything really. Just
Things
kind
have
of
been good. I mean, I have no complaints. And I think about, you know, just saying a minute ago how you can reassess. You know, if something were to happen in a negative fashion, and I'm, 10 years down the line, well, then I can decide whether or not I want to keep working or not.
Right.
But I think too, if things are good and I'm feeling good and I'm healthy, then for me, I can't see why I would quit in my situation. I just happen to have I kind of feel like I have a somewhat of a unique situation.
You know what? I think, I think this story has been pretty enlightening, because I know, Don, you're not going to finish life financially as a multimillionaire, and you're fine with that, but you're comfortable. So, guys, I want you guys to understand that the goal is not for everybody on the planet to be a millionaire, because that's impossible. But the goal is to finish, your, I like to call fourth quarter of life, which is where you and I are starting. Right. That on your terms, emotionally, physically, and financially, and whatever your story path is, that if it works for you, it works for you. Right. And not everybody's designed to be, again, a multimillionaire or what have you. So, man, Don, thanks for coming out, sharing that story.
For having me. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there saying, okay, I think I'm going to be okay now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Again, you started like most. You didn't get taught, but everything worked out.
Yeah, I'm actually feeling pretty good about things. I do have my regrets, but things are good, and I'm not, like I said, no complaints. I'm feeling positive about tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, guys, listen. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Do me a favor and smash that like button on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. And if you're on the podcast, subscribe to that podcast. Listen to them. They come out here regularly. Had a couple of slow weeks here. I had a little, my mother passed away, and I had a couple of busy weeks. I didn't get out there for a couple, so apologize for that. But they're coming on track, and we're going to keep more coming at you. So we'll talk to you guys next week. Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Really enjoyed making all these episodes for you. Remember, we're just having conversations with people's journey with money, and the things they did right with it, the things that did wrong with it, and how did they really come about getting their mindset with money. So every episode's different. We all have a good takeaway from them. So do me a favor, hit the like button, smash the like button, and subscribe to my channel, because every episode that I do is going to be different, as all our journeys are different. So you guys take care, and we'll talk to you next week.